They didn't do unforgivable things. They did care about the world and the people in their lives and had many nice comments. So they had forgivable flaws and were nice, good people. So, but how doesn't this apply to Anakin? How is he different? He isn't. He isn't evil. He's just an understandable, forgivable flaws, and he's very caring, nice, brave, a heroic person, so a hero. Not evil, but a hero with flaws, which makes him vulnerable for evil, which makes his fall both believable and tragic. So Lucas is seated. He made his fall both believable and tragic. So he did make his fall tragic, and it is not all as though he is already on the dark side. Also about Anakin is supporting a dictatorship. He believed in a dictatorship where there would be no killing or torture or wasteful spending on corruption, but peace and prosperity without discrimination. So how is that so evil? You can argue dictatorships lead to evil, but then Anakin would just be naive or even stupid, but not at all evil. Unless you are saying that you just supported the idea one ruler should rule, aka an individual, instead the majority is evil, so supporting the power of individuals is automatically wrong. Democracy is based upon the idea that prevents suppression, not that it in and of itself is more moral. Democracy for the sake of democracy. Believing a group automatically has more rights than the individual is actually fascism. And also Redlettermedia calls it fascist dictatorships. He supports he thought one ruler should make people agree and that he would decide what laws would be created and others had to follow it. This is just a dictatorship. A dictatorship in and of itself isn't fascism. Supporting one ruler is just absolutism. Fascism isn't just about an authoritarian dictatorship. It is actually about a group being more important than an individual. An individual freedom should be suppressed and weakness should be suppressed, and all individuals should serve the majority, which a democracy where the majority can make laws that violate minorities come down to. Also, it is again inconsistent, as in Lord of the Rings films, Aragorn is reported to becoming a ruling king, so he is a fascist. And to those of you saying that is a fantasy world, so is this, and wasn't Leia a princess? Also, I once mentioned examples of good dictatorships, like the ancient Persians, Chinese, Egyptians, Romans, etc. And I got the response, I was using pre-industrial civilizations as examples. Yeah, what is wrong with that? You were telling me wise governments did not exist and I had no idea how the ordinary people lived in those societies? Oh, by the way, this is Reviewer 1's experience. This is again, Reviewer 1. Been one of the main editors of the Dutch historical Wikipedia and read dozens upon dozens of history books and many different theories, and excelled at advanced history and have written his own amateur history book. Okay, in those societies they already had principles of universal human rights, and it was made illegal for nobles to enslave commoners. There were constantly fair trials. People were even allowed to question the government. There were good quality orphanages stated by the government. Trojans often helped organize these soldiers and government officials for decades, and centuries were prevented from abusing the populace. Emperor Ron of Han introduced free food and clothes for widows and elders without children 2,000 years ago, and health care for the people, money for the poor people with smart ideas, food and games to feed and entertain the poor, work opportunities for the poor, support for the handicapped, and food and medicine for the poor. They already had the concept of universal human rights and social services. Most kings weren't at all only nice to their knights and nobles like in the Middle Ages, and democracies often fail. Also, like many in Africa, the Second World War and the Great Depression happened under democracies. Democracies have worked for the last 50 years in the West, which is pretty narrow series of examples to base an absolute good and evil definition on. Oh, and most of the West's success was due to educated population, advances in technology, and successful fights for good constitutions, not due to democracy. Also, I want to be clear, this isn't supposed to say all dictatorships are good and all democracies bad. It simply isn't. As simple as you support a wise, kind dictatorship, you are purely evil. It isn't at all the same neither as him later on supporting a dictatorship that forces people to live exactly how he wants for his and the Sith's gain. This is like saying that people who believe in charity are communists. Matthew and Redlettermedia complain that Anakin killed the Sand People, saying he murdered innocent humans. No. They aren't sentient, they never talk, and only yell. They don't show self-awareness or complex thoughts, they all seem evil without execution. And Obi-Wan even sees stated they were frightened easily, a generalization remark which would make sense if they were animals, so they acted on the same instincts, but if they were human beings, they would constitute racism. I mean, if they just look differently, imagine this. Black people are frightened easily, but they will be back, and in greater numbers. Yeah, no, that doesn't sound right, but saying something like that about wolves would work though. But to add to that, Lars flat out says in this film they walk like men but are vicious, mindless monsters. Not human, not intelligent, but monsters. And they are only called sand people because of their psychology, and people says Lars was being racist because they kidnapped his wife. He was a loving father and freed slaves, and then even again Obi-Wan would be a racist. And a troll called Garamondi said he wasn't a great guy, but in a fucking wheelchair. So wait, being in a wheelchair means you are not a good person? Alright, let's add people in wheelchairs to the offended people list. Also, they mentioned they domesticated Bothas and used guns. Yeah, and aliens used elevators. Practical intelligence doesn't equal sentience. Anakin killed the innocent women and children of non-sentinel animals / monsters. This is very hateful and cruel, but as they are animals, not evil, unless you are a vegetarian, you have contributed to the deaths of animals. This is like the support of a dictatorship, foreshadowed his fall to the dark side, but in no way it makes him evil. And just as a side note, let's not forget that these things killed his parent, his mother. Oh, remember Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, who all like before he fell, he threatened a criminal and also strongly entertained the idea of a Roman dictatorship and complains about Bruce and Gordon? But anywho's, what more? Oh yes, people complain Anakin and Obi-Wan don't act like true friends because they argue a lot and have problems with each other. Well again, fighting is normal for friends, especially for parents / master and apprentice, who both have a lot of shortcomings. Siblings, parents and kids, loved ones, and even friends fight when they both have emotional and psychological problems, and especially when one is a teenager. What matters is that they care about each other a lot, and we see they do. Obi-Wan comforts Anakin about his worries over Padme and his mom and tries to really advise him. And Anakin saves Obi-Wan's life many times, and they also discuss their political opinions. They have witty banter during the speeder chase, and beginning they can also have fun together. Obi-Wan talks about him being arrogant, not in the hateful but a concerned parent / brother figure way. He tries to make Anakin a better Jedi, and he also compliments him, although a bit backhand, when he gave the clones a smart order. And Anakin also tries to be a good apprentice, staying with Padme to protect her till he's sure his mother is in danger, and trying to be respectful, and he remarks Obi-Wan is as wise as Yoda and powerful as Windu. All of this neither Matthew or Plinkett comments on. Anakin is just frustrated by Obi-Wan being so strict and critical, as he is very arrogant and needed for praise, and Obi-Wan needs control and wasn't really ready to train him. But both try to be nice to the other and grow warmer towards each other, and both save and care and talk about personal things with each other. Oh, and Anakin, it is all Obi-Wan's fault. Yeah, his mom just died and he is barely an adult, has little family, and is extremely scared of death. Yeah, you really shouldn't take what he says in such a situation so seriously. Also, Plinkett complains that talk in the opening about their relationship instead of showing it. Well, they show their relationship is just mentioned a lot also. They simply also established what happened off screen. This is called establishing backstory, which is normal in films as it gives context to what happened before, and it uses time spans between films to advance relationships. It's not okay. Well, I will just save that for later, but for now, there are so many films that establish things that happened off screen, like The Godfather, Silverado, The Big Chill, both coming from the Lawrence Kasdan, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, Carlito's Way, and no, that speaks too much for its self-establishing backstory. Is as normal in films as music, just as in the original trilogy. Obi-Wan and Vader's, Lando's and Han's, etc. Past relationships are discussed too. Also, we wouldn't get to know Anakin as a person in the prequels. Was established in the episode 1 defense, we certainly got to know him there. He was really well established in that film. In this film, we certainly get to know him a lot better even. We saw him as a kid in the first film, which was a great thing also, in that we saw his true purity and also the basis of his fear and need for love. And this was smart, as unlike with Luke, he wasn't just frustrated or rebellious or emotional, but very tirelessly unaccepting of death and change, so he was a lot more vulnerable, and that, as well as true altruism, starts a lot younger. And it helped develop him differently from Luke. People say it was lazy that Lucas wanted to make him innocent by just making him a kid, and not through clever writing. Characterization that is established beyond being a kid, he was really made innocent. Being a kid just added to that. In this film, we see that the rejecting of the Jedi and the criticisms of Obi-Wan have made him very depressed, and he is even more worried about losing the people around him. He has grown from being idealistic to being struck to be problematic, and also skeptical about the system, and we see he loves nature and purity like Padme, is very insecure and also quickly offended. He is very poetic, often deeply talking about his feelings. He is also a bit stressed about standing on his own and passionate about doing what he thinks is right, like standing up for Padme's right to an investigation, and he wouldn't be relatable like Luke, putting aside that using relatable is argumentum and the masses, and characters that are unique are often endearing. He is rebellious like Luke, worried about his friends like Luke. So Anakin was a really deep character, and since he tries to do the right thing, and has such a hard life and did care so much about everything, he did even when he caused him to act stupid. He was a really deep character, and what set apart from Luke is how much more vulnerable he is. He is mainly just really childish, in a very sad way. He simply has problems accepting of change, and he lacks a proper mentor to help him grow. This is again why he wanted to start a relationship with Padme. He wasn't even properly trained as a Jedi, starting too late and training under a really flawed mentor. So let's see. And Obi-Wan grows to trust him more throughout this film and be a more understanding and supportive mentor. He starts being very critical of Anakin, not acknowledging his skills and being too orthodox, not hunting down the assassin, but when Anakin saves him, he goes along with it, although he stays critical, and then Mace Windu advises him to trust him more, and he lets Anakin off his first own mission. And when he gets captured, and Anakin does, he also stays critical, but also works together with him and gives him more constructive advice. And when Anakin fights well, he also compliments him when he orders the clones. And now that Anakin has well protected Padme, trusts him to help him fight Dooku, and he tries to really explain to Anakin that threatening doesn't work, why they need to save Padme, and when he falls, he throws his lightsaber to him, trusting in him, and Anakin fights Dooku. Well, for a while and afterwards. Obi-Wan is a lot more relaxed about Anakin going off with Padme, unlike in the beginning of the film and in the next film. Anakin has really become a knight. Obi-Wan trusts him, and they are more relaxed about each other, having grown to understand each other. But so they claim, is unlikable, underdeveloped, and Obi-Wan is bland, and they aren't good friends, and the films have no substance. Oh yeah, sure. Now on to Anakin's romances with Padme. Plinkett complains the council sent Anakin with Padme in spite of Obi-Wan knowing he is in love with her. Well, that is the point of discipline, overcoming temptation, not running from it. By this logic, Luke should have been told by Yoda to stay away from that cave as well. Vader, and he comments Anakin's training was predicted to cause grave danger. Well, he is a hard-working Jedi now, and they decided to train him. And well, he is mostly doing well, and he comments Padme is under threat of assassination. Yeah, that is why Anakin is going with her, and he compliments they don't conceal themselves. Bodyguards often don't conceal people. They make sure they go to safe place, which Anakin did, and stay close to them. And Anakin as a Jedi could have sensed an assassin from far away, unless they use slow, small bugs. He comments Padme is against them falling in love, yet dresses up so beautifully and goes to visit beautiful places. 1. She against them acting on their love. 2. She still wants to have fun with him as a friend. 3. She thinks they can just control themselves. And 4. She wear a headscarf and live in a dumpster, really. If you are in love with each other, those things won't make your feelings go away. Plinkett complains they deeply care for each other while not knowing each other. This is called love at first sight, and you like Titanic, where that happened, right? Or how about, well, just most movies with romances. Take your pick. So what do you want? I mean, Han and Leia only recently knew each other, unless you are counting the time in episode 4 and 5